Given the right, or perhaps the wrong circumstance, you might discover that you had unimaginable athletic ability. The wrong circumstance would perhaps be, well, coming across a snake chasing you. The right circumstance would be discovering little tricks from expert paddlers. Even better is when you understand how biomechanics produces power and force with the paddle, and you understand how human physiology is limited, and you work out ways to get better almost overnight.
Just to recap, the Year of the Dragon, I spent 7 months trying to improve my distance paddle over 30 seconds by way of examining different techniques and different training methods. Then I stumbled across my notes from years of research, and they reminded me that it's my starting strategy that makes the biggest difference. If I can accelerate the boat, the erg, as quickly as possible, as fast as possible, I can improve dramatically, because that's the slowest part of the race, the first few strokes.
Compared to a reasonable guide of when I was a novice paddler, the graph in the orange, I improved by 3 meters over 30 seconds, primarily due to a faster rate, shorter stroke, and sustaining that rate for longer.
How I achieved that increase in acceleration was through the use of driving with 2 legs initially, so that each leg was working reasonably hard as opposed to one leg working extremely hard. Then after 2 strokes, I switched to pulling one leg back and increased the rate I was paddling. That's really important for paddling. I learned that trick I had 2 paddling sessions with Pacific Dragons, one of Sydney and Australia's premier dragon boat clubs. I learned that they do a lot of OC paddling, and I learned how to accelerate by increasing the rate dramatically. The stroke gets shorter and you expend a lot of energy, but you don't do it for that long. And for a long distance paddle, I probably wouldn't do as many acceleration strokes.
After a night of knowledge sharing with the paddlers at CYL, I improved by 8 meters over 30 seconds. I kept my increased rate in the acceleration phase with a shorter stroke, but I now adopted a 2-leg forward start for 2 strokes before retracting the inside leg and keeping the gunner leg forward. And I also used a lot of bicep pull for the first few strokes before transitioning to a more standard orthodox stroke.
By increasing the rate, it can improve your paddling distance dramatically. For example, when we did a test at CYL, I paddled my best with a really fast rate. One of the other paddlers decided to try and increase his rate as much and shorten his stroke for the acceleration strokes, and he improved 4 meters straight away just from that change in paddling strategy. So it works.
Looking to improve my start further, I changed my training program. I added a squat row coupled exercise, more of a Bulgarian squat row exercise, aiming to lift 34 kilos for about 20 reps and 20 kilos for another 20-25 reps. Needless to say, this resulted in further improvement. Despite this improvement, it still doesn't compare to this expert paddler at CYL. This paddler in the blue is paddling on his non-dominant side. Myself in the red, also non-dominant side. But as you can see, the blue paddler has a much greater acceleration power. Thus far, the achievements in improving for the red paddler and myself have been primarily through lower body biomechanics. There is a bit more bicep involvement in the first few strokes, but it is a fast acceleration rate, but pushing 2 legs, switching to 1 leg. There's a lot more scope for improvement if I can now improve my upper body contribution.
The top arm mechanics also changed over time, so that I was able to increase my power output, peak power output, admittedly now on a different erg, so different power outputs, but for argument's sake, going from 280 watts to 310 watts by adopting a primary throwing action with the top arm and increasing the height of that top arm, so got a lot more gravity assist in helping drive downward and forward.
The paddling stroke ends up looking like that front paddler there on the left with the white cap. The arm goes very high, reaching up high and then becoming like a throwing action to accelerate the top of the top handle of the paddle. Apparently that paddler in the white cap is also an Olympic kayak medalist.
So now we come to the really juicy part of this presentation. So and when I say I, it means you. I was a barely average paddler and I improved by a heck of a lot, which means anyone out there can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. So now I've established that I can achieve 310 watts of peak power. And I improved that to 342 watts by using this technique change. I call it the X grip. So I change from this grip into, watching closely, this grip, which changes upper body mechanics slightly and allows me to use slightly different muscles.
In summary, focusing on upper body mechanics, primarily the top arm, I improved my peak power output from about 280 watts to 310 watts using a throwing arm action that got gradually higher in reach. And then when adopting an X grip, midway through the acceleration phase, I increased my peak power output to 342 watts.
I couldn't believe it. It's beyond my wildest dreams.